In this two-part NX series, we'll look at how to create a tube model and then how to create an associative bend table on a drawing. In part 1, we'll focus on the tube model creation. NX has a add-on mechanical routing application that may be worth considering if you're doing a lot of tubes, but in this video we'll be using the standard modeling application. There are several different approaches we can use depending on our needs, but what we'll focus on here is a coordinate system based method. Now, jumping into our model, we're going to start with a coordinate system. So we'll come up here to the datums group and select coordinate system. I'm going to do a reset just so we can see it from scratch. We're going to first use an offset coordinate system, and the reference is going to be a selected coordinate system. So I'm going to select our initial coordinate system in the part navigator here. And for this first coordinate system, I'm going to leave it at 0, 0, 0, and I'm going to put a size of 1. I'm going to click to apply and keep the dialog open. I want to hide that initial coordinate system in the navigator. And so our next one's going to be based off the one we just created. For an X offset, I'm going to type in 20 inches. And then if we zoom out a little bit, we can see where that coordinate system is going to be. And then we may want to bend that up 45 degrees, let's say. So I'm going to do 45 about the Y on the rotation, middle mouse to apply. Go to our next coordinate system is going to be based off the one we just created, so we'll select that as our reference. Let's do 15 inches for the offset on this one. We'll do a 0 rotation in the Y, but let's do a 90-degree bend about the Z. And so we'll go that direction next. Middle mouse to apply. Select that coordinate system. Let's do 12 inches this time. And in this case, I'm going to leave the rotations at 0. I'm going to middle mouse to apply. And so now maybe we want this next segment to go parallel to the first segment that we have, so we can choose a different coordinate system option. We have several options. I'm just going to go with Z-axis, X-axis, origin. For my origin, I'm going to click that coordinate system we just created. And then for my Z-axis, I'm going to click the Z of that first coordinate system. And then also for the X, I'll click the X of the first coordinate system. So now this one's oriented the same as our initial coordinate system. I'm going to middle mouse to apply. And then we'll add one more segment in, and we'll use another offset coordinate system, and we'll select that coordinate system we just created, and let's say that one's 15 inches long. And I'm going to click OK to finish out that coordinate system command. So there's our coordinate systems created. Now that we have our coordinate systems created representing our bend points, we can just connect the coordinate systems with a line. So if we switch to our curves tab, we can choose the line command. I know I'm going to be selecting coordinate system origins, so I'm going to make sure the only snap option I have on is existing point. And so for the start option, I'm going to select that first coordinate system. In option, I'm going to select the origin of the next. And then if we click middle mouse, that'll apply. And then I'm going to select that coordinate system, go to the next, middle mouse to apply. This coordinate system, that coordinate system, middle mouse to apply. This origin, that origin, and we'll click OK to end the dialog. So now we have kind of our routing for our tube, but we need to add bends in there. So before we add bends, I'm going to open the expressions editor. We could press Control E for the shortcut, but just for visibility, I'll click on expressions. I'm going to create a few expressions. If we show all expressions, we can see there's some in here for the lines we just created, but I'm going to filter it by named expressions just so we can see what we're doing here. So I'm going to create a tube OD. We'll say a 1.5 inch tube, a tube wall thickness, and we'll do a 120 wall. Let's do a tube ID, and that's going to be the tube OD minus 2 times the tube wall thickness. And we don't necessarily have to have these expressions. I just like to do it. It makes it easier to reference them later. And then we'll also create a tube bend radius. So that's the one we need for the step we're about to do. Tube bend radius. You could have different bend radii. In this case, we're just going to use one throughout. And so we'll do a 3 right there. So click OK there. And so now we need to place our bend arcs in there. So if we go back to our curve tab, we can choose the arc circle command. We'll use the 3-point option. So we'll just select here on the first line, select here on the second line, and we notice it's letting us basically drag where we want that arc at. But in this case, we want to put a defined radius. So I'm going to switch this back to constant for a second. And we'll type in tube bend radius and press enter. And we notice it's not in the location we want. So we have two options. We have complement arc and we have alternate solutions. So if we cycle through the different solutions, that's in the area we want, except we want the complement arc. So now we'll click the complement, and now we have the bend going the direction we want. So I'm going to click OK there, and the next ones will be easier because we've already established kind of this arc based off of this bend radius. So we'll just select the one we just created, Control C to copy, and then we'll Control V to paste. And so we're looking for two selections: the first line of the bend, the second line of the bend, and then we need to make sure this arrow is going forward along the tube. So I'm going to double click the arrow to switch directions, middle mouse to apply. And for this last bend, I'll do the same thing. First line, second line, double click to flip the arrow, middle mouse to apply, and we can hit escape to exit our arc command there. So we have our route created. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. So I'm going to select these coordinate systems, right click, feature group. I'm just going to name these CSIS. And then I'm going to do the same thing with our arcs and lines there, and I'm going to name this one guide. And so we got those two there. I'll hide the coordinate systems for now. And so we have our route. Now if we go over to our surface tab, there's a tube command under the more section of the base group. So we'll select tube. I'm going to reset the dialog, and for the outer diameter, I'm going to start typing tube, and we see that there's tube OD. So I'll scroll down to it, press tab, and then go to the next. So tube ID for the inner diameter. And then for our settings, we're going to use single segment. And then for our path, we'll choose tangent curves. And then the trick is we want to select follow fillet. So if I select that, now it's highlighted. So when I click on this first line, it's going to follow that path, and it's going to follow those arcs all the way through at every bend. And then I'll just middle mouse to OK it. So now we have our tube there, and I'll hide our guides. And so there's our model. But we may, for the drawing, we may want to show points at the bend, the key points, the bend points. So what we'll do is I'm going to show the coordinate systems one more time, and then we'll create a point at each of those coordinate systems. So select point, and I'll reset this dialog. And because we know we're going to choose existing points, I'm going to select existing point just so I don't get circle centers or anything else. And so I'm just going to go through, select our coordinate system, origin, middle mouse to apply, select the origin, middle mouse to apply, origin, middle mouse to apply, origin, middle mouse to apply, and this final origin. And then we'll select OK. So there's our points. I'm going to also add those to a feature group. We'll call that points. And then I'm also going to use a move to layer command. So I got it on a radial menu here, but move to layer. And I'm going to move those to layer 70. It's not necessary, but having those on a layer can be nice later to hide them in the drawing. There's other ways, but you can also hide them using layers. So all those points will be on layer 70. I'm going to hide our coordinate systems. And now that we may want to show those points on a drawing, we need to create a reference set that includes those points. So I'm going to open up the reference set command. If you go to assemblies, there's reference sets there. And then, so we're going to select model is just one body. So that's the tube body. That's what we want. And then we'll create a new reference set. We'll call it with points. And because right now all I have shown in the window is the tube and the points, I'm just going to box select and get everything. We can see we have 6 objects. That's the tube and the 5 points, and then hit close. So now we have that reference set. I'm going to hit the home key to zoom and trimetric, and then I'm going to hide our points, and then we'll save. So there's our model ready to go. In the next video, we'll take that model, add it to a drawing, and then create an associative bend table.